everyone. I think this is a question that a lot of us have on our minds because we are in an ever-evolving world. Literally, week to week, the world is changing, especially the world of FinTech, finance, and technology. Both are constantly evolving, and it's on most of your hands that this uh, responsibility of keeping your students abreast with the evolution is on. And of course, at the end of the day, the end result comes to you, Mr. Dharamshi, because you're the employer and you're the one who essentially is looking out for the right characteristics. So let me start off first from an academic perspective. And let me start off with you, Mr. Sinha, that, IIM Ahmedabad is known for creating your future finance business leaders. How are you incorporating AI in the various aspects of your academia? To what extent has it already been done? And how do you find the right balance between your traditional concepts of finance and, the newer AI concepts?
So, if at all you look at business education, if I do an oversimplification, what you'll observe is that the topics that are covered can primarily be categorized into two categories. The first category would be some of the enduring principles, some of the timeless concepts that are not going to change. It is going to last forever. And the second category would be the ephemeral ones. By ephemeral ones, I mean that things that change, things that become obsolete, for example, tools, techniques, and so on and so forth. But then when it comes to the enduring principles, timeless concepts, for instance, when you're talking about, let us say, capital management, when you're talking about risk assessment, when you're talking about incentive design, many of these things are going to stay forever. AI is impacting both of these things in a very different manner. Uh, the moment it comes to timeless concepts, it of course changes the way people engage with the concepts, the way people learn the concepts, the way people access those concepts, and so on and so forth. But the concept itself is going to stay for a long period of time or maybe forever. If I draw an analogy, for example, human beings will not stop consuming food. They will not stop consuming music. They will not stop consuming books. But over a period of time, if you see in the last 20, 30 years, the way we access it, the way we consume it has changed. And therefore, many of these concepts are going to stay. They are going to be relevant for a long time to come. But the moment it comes to the ephemeral ones, what you will observe is that there will be changes, there will be transitions, and that is where you need to be adaptive in a different manner. And that is what we have been doing with our curriculum on both the dimensions, integrating AI in a specific manner with the core curriculum. And then at the same time, when it comes to the electives and so on and so forth, there is a different kind of engagement we are having with that sort of a content. There are courses where things are going deeper within the fundamentals of AI, and there are courses where there are things at the intersection of finance and AI. And of course, as you take some of these things forward, if you try to project the future, a lot of things are unknown as well, and we are entering an unknown trajectory. And therefore, it is very important that you are on your toes and ready to change and then move forward.
Well, Mr. Pandya definitely is on his toes because, as we spoke earlier, he's not just the director of FinTech, he is also an investor, which means that you have these new age FinTech companies coming to you quite frequently, pitching to you. How tempting is it to constantly keep thinking that, oh, my academia needs to change, my curriculum needs to change, because look at this. This company is doing something that I hadn't even imagined. So how tempting is it? Because there has to be, to a certain extent, some semblance of stability as well in curriculums.
Absolutely right. So what happens is that, as we just discussed about the concept of certain things not changing at all, right? While certain things will change. So when we talk about certain, now what he mentioned is about, let's say, the concept itself, but let's talk about now the human values, right? FinTech also is a play where you are interacting with human, and that human connect, whether we talk about empathy, whether we talk about that gut feel about the risk management, those things are still going to be there. The way you implement those things are going to be different, right? So when we talk about, right, today, there are three different ways in which you can understand where the world of finance is moving, right? One is look at the way in which we are generating data, which is very rapidly increasing every day. So the way we consume data, the way we analyze data, and the way we infer data needs to change as well. Because the way people are working on new applications every day and the way people contribute to that data generation and the way we do risk analysis also changes from that perspective, right? So when we talk about data part, data play, that is very critical. So students will need to understand how this data play is changing. And then second point comes when we talk about the human value, as I mentioned earlier. So unless and until you first understand the customer segment that you are going to work with, unless and until then you design the product which is going to empathize with that customer segment, it is going to work the way they want the product to work, right? Unless until you are deciding the right channel to distribute your product based on your segment, you will not be able to succeed whether we talk about AI or without AI, right? You need to identify segment, product, and channel. This is the mantra that every business, not only fintech, needs to figure out very rapidly. So, unless until you are working on the ground, you understand the ground reality, no amount of AI can help you out. That remains the same. And that's the reason when we teach students, that also becomes very integral part of it, that you need to understand on the ground what is happening. Go to the people who are going to use your application day in and day out, talk to them, figure out what is happening, what are the challenges. Those can't change, right? Finally, the third part, which is there, right? The future trends. What you should think that, okay, going forward, what are the new opportunities that you should take today itself, right? Take risk, integrate into new technologies. So today, when we talk about generative AI specifically, what happens is that you see that the dilemma is whether to invest now or later, because every day something new will come. Every day, new innovations will keep on coming. So the challenge becomes, if I am left behind, then somebody else will take the initiative and somebody else will go ahead. But if I get into it and things change and it is not working out for me, then my investment is gone and there is zero ROI, right? Or negative ROI. So what do I do? And that is where we teach that, okay, the innovation which is going to happen at a rapid pace, at the same point in time, you need to figure out that what is the risk that you are taking in that innovation. And if you are agile enough, if you are flexible enough, then you can rapidly pivot, migrate from, let's say, one concept to another concept, and then figure out that, okay, this is working out, this is not working out, and that is how you can implement.
So basically, when you also teach your students, you try and put forward the fintech entrepreneurial point of view, and in a way, you're ingraining the ever-changing world of fintech entrepreneurship. Um, I would like to take in the perspective of Professor Purohit, because Banasthali focuses on women's education. Now, unfortunately, we do see a gender divide for various careers, but more so for finance. What do you think AI has done? Do you think it has deepened the divide, or do you think it has slowly trying to level the playing field for men and women?
That's a very good question, Mubina ji. And Banasthali has been always been a university for women rather than a women's university, because as per the needs of the women, the curriculum and the programs are always structured. Now, this university, which has about 18,000 girls, and the management school, which I had right now, has 2,500 students. So it's right that if we see the finance space, then the number of women that we find are lesser. Also, if you see some recruitment tools, AI recruitment tools, it is said that they are biased as far as their own thinking is concerned as to who are better. For example, Amazon, they had one, they had to abandon this one the moment there were some allegations that there is a bias involved over here. But also, if you see the AI models, they are also trained in such a way that they give a kind of picture to everyone that men are better in the finance jobs. But I think, with time, things are changing, and we believe it has to change in the time to come as well. For example, I just give you an analogy. Professor Ankur also gave an analogy. Let me also give an analogy over here. In 1960s, when the traffic on the Jaipur road used to stop, if a woman was driving a car, that time Banasthali thought about why can't women fly? And we set up a flying club. Today we have a DGCA approved flying club with 5 Cessna aircrafts. And this girl, Avni Chaturvedi, who was the first woman to be fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force, is up on the slide. And first time, this time in July, the Indian Navy also recruited women fighter pilot for the first time. And that girl, Astha Punya, is also up on the slide. So what I mean to say is that the university has given several firsts to the nation, whether this or Meera Kumar, who was the first lady speaker. So I think the way in which we find our students gaining momentum in the fintech space and finance is concerned, I think we are the ones who are, holding the flag that women can do well in the field of finance also. So the way in which we are gearing up and our curriculum in our management programs, be it the undergraduate or the postgraduate, I believe that in the time to come, this gap will reduce. And the moment it gets reduced, we are pretty sure that the AI models which are trained with some bias, as you talked about, that thing will also slowly vanish.
All right. Well, great to hear that then. It's a very positive note to at least start thinking of how finance will change. All right, finally, Mr. Dharamshi, CashRich, it's been in the wealth tech space for the last couple of years. I want to know, and you're the person who's actually deploying AI in FinTech. So I want to know, how have functions changed since you've deployed AI? Has it dramatically displaced certain jobs, or do you think it stayed the same and you have found other uses of individuals? How have operation changed?
Thanks. Uh, so this is a very typical question we get, or it's everybody is facing this issue, that is there any job loss or are you hiring? So from 2019 when we started and today, our workforce has increased. So it essentially means that after everything we are still adding workforce. So
But your
growth.
business also must have increased.
Yes, yes. So essentially, even after business increase, have we been stagnant? No. So the requirements are changing, yes, but there is no, you can say, hiring freeze or something like that. We are hiring, but what we are hiring is very important, and it's going to be very important for students going forward, how they have to, shape up themselves. So, like as Ankur mentioned, and Vikram also mentioned, two things. One is like the core principles never change, and newer one which is called agility. So skill stagnation versus agility is what we are looking at it. So what tasks have not changed, and what task every new employee who's to come needs to have. So like even after when the computer came, there were people thinking that there will be job loss. Then internet came, then people thought there is a lot of job loss. Nothing has happened. In fact, newer jobs have come, and human beings or the entire universe has the lifted to the next level, from the mundane bad job to the creative and higher value of jobs are coming up. So the students of today and future needs to be, you know ready for that kind of newer things. And AI, thanks to AI, I would always say thanks to AI, that overall thinking of all the students have changed, and they've become more powerful versus they being more stagnant in the previous avatar. So what we look at it, there are certain skills which are very very core, which will never, AI can never do it, but that is called creative thinking. Another is critical thinking, and compassion means humans. Like as Vikram said, that we send students to go and meet humans, see what their requirements are. This will never change. Correct? So there are core principles, as we call CCC, that is all these three C are going to be very, very important. Students have to embrace all these things and start adaptive to the AI. Don't think AI is your competitor, it's your new tool. So we call them as a co-pilot. You are a pilot and they are your co-pilot. So if we find this kind of qualities, basically we are looking at problem solvers versus degree. I'm not looking at an MBA degree or a BTech degree in isolation. I'm looking whether he is understanding and is trying to solve a problem if it's faced to him. So if students are problem solving, we are hiring them. Is our hiring increased? Yes, we are hiring more. But these are the newer things which we are looking in the students, and adaptive to the newer things. I think so. That's what we are looking for. But definitely there is no freeze.
Okay, so Professor, tell me, when students come to you, is there this enthusiasm to go that creative direction, or is it more fear that, you know, oh my, is my investment banking job going to be lost to AI, or is my consulting job going to be lost to AI? What direction do you think students are looking at, and what's your advice to them?
So, if you just look at this particular context, so whenever you have any conversations in the context of AI, very quickly you switch to job losses. You start discussing about what jobs will be relevant in the future, not relevant in the future. Obviously, there will be some job losses. Obviously, new jobs will be created. But then the follow-up question is that what is the net? Is the net going to be negative? Is the net going to be positive? Now, I will not get into that territory, that whether the net job creation will be positive or negative. I'll leave it for the audience, of course. As I said, that we are venturing into uncertain times, and therefore nobody has a clarity, or nobody will be able to give you a concrete answer. But what kind of jobs will be relevant? What kind of jobs will be created? How will the jobs change? Well, believe me, for each and every job that we have today, some parts of it will be taken over by AI. Whether it be my job, whether it be your job, whosoever's job is. But the moment you look at the job of a consultant, the moment you look at the job of an investment banker, very likely some of the mechanical parts of that job will be automated, will be done by AI, but the humans will still be relevant. Again, let me just take an example over here. For instance, let us say there is a large company that invites a consultant today for some sort of a restructuring of the organization. What is the role of the consultant? The consultant goes ahead, does some sort of an analysis, crunches the data, extracts the data from the organization, does some data crunching, conducts interviews, understands the organization better, and then finally is coming up with certain options which are then presented to the management. There is an interaction that happens with the management, and finally everybody zeroes down on the solution. Now, do you think all of these things will be taken over by AI? Obviously not. There will still be a consultant. But then some part of the consultant's job, when it comes to data crunching, when it comes to deal assessment, when it comes to analyzing massive amount of information, when it comes to some of the repetitive tasks like creating the slides and so on and so forth, many of these things will be taken over by AI. And therefore, if right now you're an operator, you are working on Excel sheets, you are working on presentations, and that's all that you are doing, then very likely you will be replaced by AI. But the moment you are a bit higher up on the value chain, you are more into strategic advisory, you are more into negotiations and such sort of things, then of course, I don't think it is AI that is going to replace you. Of course, you will be using AI to create various options. But then after all, it's going to be a human who's going to discuss the pros and cons of each option, because there is never one solution to anything. For everything, there are multiple possible solutions. If you go to buy a house, there is never one solution to begin with. You assess a number of solutions, look at the pros and cons, discuss with various stakeholders, and then finally say that, you know what, this is what is the best for my family. Of course, in the housing selection, the stakeholders will be you, your spouse, your kids, and so on and so forth. And therefore, AI will help you in coming up with the options, but then assessing it from various aspects and then choosing one of them will still require certain kinds of skills. And I think that is what you need to develop yourself. A leader cannot say that, you know what, I don't want to understand the business concepts, I don't want to understand the financial concepts. In the future, I will just go ahead, create an organization, and AI will help me with everything. The leader needs to know various things in order to successfully drive the business.
All right, very well said. Yeah, I mean, most of us do rely on AI to at least collate the data so that analysis becomes easier. But the analysis part of it, of course, still has to be done by humans. And that's where creativity, right, and in negotiations and in analysis is required, like Mr. Dharamshi as well said. Professor Pandya, you have a global perspective because, you know, SP Jain has institutions in Dubai and Singapore outside of India. How would you rate the Indian talent in AI and FinTech versus the global talent pool?
So when we look at from the perspective of certain areas, of course, we are ahead. In certain areas, we are not to the mark, right? So let us understand the difference and diversity that we bring, right? So we call in India, right, jugaad for certain things, tricks that we use. People believe it is good in certain cases, yes, but jugaad cannot be permanent. It has to be a temporary thing, right? So we sometimes don't believe that, okay, everything should be jugaad. But then what it creates is that you don't have that discipline and vision to scale in a way which can bring the solution which is more permanent in nature. Now, when we talk about jugaad, it also has benefits. It means that you are able to turn around um, solutions at a cheaper rate, faster pace. So unfortunately, what typically happens is that given the values and the way people think about it, we are very good at looking at the frugal innovation. We are talking about looking at payment where we are already ahead, right? If you compare globally also. Then when we talk about lending, the way we can create that last mile connectivity and the impact, and thanks to digital public infrastructure, DPI, that we have in India, it is possible that we are able to get into those areas which otherwise no country can serve in the world. So we are ahead in those, right? And when we talk about AI specifically, the talent, I can be very blunt that so far we are always a follower. When we talk about emerging technologies, we always look at what others are doing and the fundamental research work for whatever reason, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is more about the institutional support that is required. So we are not yet there. So what I think we can maybe benefit from is that idea exchange, understanding what others are doing and how can we Indianize that concept, right? That is where I think we can survive, thrive, and do much better. But on the other hand, when we talk about, right, I personally believe with this AI, what will change definitely, right, is we discussed earlier that net jobs, nobody can tell how change it will be, right? But we can definitely tell that there will be a difference in the value attribution. So for example, certain roles will get more value accretive while certain will not. So let's talk about somebody who is having amazing network and relationship. That will get more value because AI can't do that, and AI, in fact, in the world of AI, that becomes more valuable, more powerful. On the other hand, if you are doing certain task which is repetitive, or let's say whether it is even white collar job, but that grunt work which people do, right, that will get less value attributed to that, and end of the day, people will not value that kind of activity. So in India, we need to start thinking about those things because people believe India is the world of KPO, BPO, and then that grunt work that people are doing, do they need to really now change their perspective and perception about how to do things, and then do they need to worry about how to identify the next opportunity? Upskilling, stepping stone in their entire career journey is the most critical part.
I think you've raised a very good point. We are speaking about how creativity is so important to not get redundant in an AI world. But if, the past says anything, we've been very good in aping, but we've not been very good in germinating new ideas. So if that's reflective of our creativity, then unfortunately our Indian talent pool needs to work more to be able to stay one step ahead of artificial intelligence. Um, Let me go across to you now, Professor Purohit, that let's say a budding financial planner or a fintech entrepreneur comes to you and asks you for career strategies on how to go about adopting AI in their business. What would you advise them?
Yes, so Mubina ji, first of all, I think Professor Ankur, Hiren ji, and Mr. Vikram also, they have talked about what AI cannot do. So I would just like to have a little minute to just mention one more thing, which is not part of literature. And that is AI cannot do bhakti for you. So it cannot earn punya points for you. It can play a bhajan, but it cannot do bhakti for you. That is one thing I would like to add, which is not the part of literature. That's why I thought I should add. Now, coming to what you mentioned, that we live in a world, some people call it a VUCA world. Anyone aware about what is VUCA in the crowd? Have you heard VUCA? Huh? Yeah? Okay, good. So it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now to this VUCA, I have added two more to extend this. VUCA and W. N is for nature apathy, and W is for wisdomlessness, which we witness. For example, you can see Whatever amount of food we eat, equal amount of food we waste also. You can see it here also in the breakfast and other things. Anyway, and then further extend it to SF, sustainability and faith for blessings. So the new VUCA becomes VUCA NWSF, right? Now, in that perspective, in which we find the future is uncertain and the kind of things happening, see, when it comes to the career strategies in AI, what's the fundamental question? Fundamental question is, can the management graduates help to bridge the gap between data science and business strategy? That's the key. So therein, the tools, whatever we talk about, which help us to understand or acquaint ourselves, apply, and aspire to lead. That's what the AI applications would go for. So these three A. So in this backdrop, if the things work, then the career strategy one can draft about. And all these tools that we talk about, be it Tableau or the Power BI, etc., generative AI and all. So these all need to work in the different area and domain. For example, the one which I talk about is the personal finance. So in personal finance, we have Mr. Hiren. He has talked about, and such a beautiful video we saw about CashRich. So apart from that, there are many, that help, and acquainting with them can help. For example, the robo advisors, or the money chat, or there are so many. You Google and you will find. So these help. But the point is, as the Mr. Hiren also talked about, critical thinking. What's new? What's new you bring to the table? So I have an idea, which maybe others can also use, because I believe that the ideas are all the outcome of the prerna that we get from Bhagwan Sri Ganesh and Devi Mata Saraswati. Culturally rooted personal finance model. This is not thought about, right? So the personal finance that we talk about in the Indian context generates three kind of wealth. See, the Western model is post-tax profit. Indian model is Shubh Labh, which is written outside every home. So the Bharatiya model of personal finance, which I gave some years back, generates three kind of wealth. Western model generates only the monetary wealth. That's what is the overall outcome. Bharatiya model says monetary wealth, devotion wealth, that is bhakti dhan again, and wisdom wealth. So can people work on this and come up with a culturally rooted idea in personal finance, and they can rewrite? It's a startup idea. Come on, grab it and mint millions. And I tell you that the moment the world realizes Bade Dhan Bhag Manush Tan Pawa, and higher order purpose of existence is the real meaning of life, then based on that, a new model of personal finance can emerge. So what I mean to say is, as you asked about the strategy, one has to be conventional, that, in the terms of AI, as I talked about, bridge the data science and the business strategy gap. Second is new ideas. So can one work on the new ideas? I give you one more idea. Work-life natural fusion, how the Bhagavad Gita's concept of Sthiti Pragya can be used to come up with a new idea, which is because everyone talks about integrating work and life. How do you do it? These are also ideas. So I think conventional measures as well as new thinking would help to come up with doing big things in life. That's what life is about, doing big.
Well, you've definitely given a lot of our audience out there some food for thought and something to think about as we continue our conversation through the day. I'll let you have the last word, Mr. Dharamshi, because you mentioned that you look for problem solvers. I'd like to add one more word of there, efficient problem solvers, because if AI is your co-pilot, you should not only be a problem solver, but you should be efficient at doing that as well. So if you're on the interviewer's seat, which I'm sure you are many a times, what would be the top few questions you would ask to assess whether the candidate is an efficient problem solver or not?
So, thanks. Questions can be many, but what we look into the candidate is very, very important. And we look in a candidate kind of a T-shaped kind of an education. So T-shape is basically going to be the future of every individual. So there is one core ability or core education and various other abilities which they have, you know, gone through, or they have taken some projects or live scenarios they have gone through outside of their domain. Because what do you mean by problem solver? Like if I am having a wealth manager, so we look for say wealth manager. So is wealth manager only going to talk to customers? No. Based on the his understanding and his conversation with the customers, he will tell my tech team that these are the things we should build in our technology. But if he's completely aloof, that will not work. Similarly, if we are hiring a tech guy, then we are looking for him or herself to know the financial concepts. So if he's a BTech person, he doesn't end there. He needs to know financial terms, financial requirements, how the app should behave, all those things he should know. So what I'm saying is one core domain that is a T-shaped, and then he should have one or more other qualities, how he can get aligned with the organization. So the careers going forward and what we look into the person is that how has he evolved in knowing the concepts of a company rather than his education. So education is skill and agility is basically knowing other domains. So we look for a person who's got more than his domain, how he has worked and evolved into knowing all other domains. That gives us kind of complete person. Yes, we don't want him to be completely ready, but adaptability and knowledge about other domain is very, very important. And thanks to, I would always say, AI, that if somebody is lacking on those areas, use them to your as a co-pilot, and start behaving like little more than your own domain. So you need to come out of your comfort zone. Going forward, it's not only about degrees, but it's also about how you understand other domains and give a rightful solutions. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think largely what we've heard from the panel is words that assuage a lot of students, I guess, that AI is not going to replace you, but at the same time, you cannot afford to get complacent, because if you do, then AI will replace you. Upskill yourself in terms of your human interactions, your creativity, which, like Professor Pandya mentioned, is somewhere that we perhaps could be lacking. But at the same time, you heard from Mr. Dharamshi as well, what exactly he, from an employer point of view, is looking out for. And with that, we come to the end of our panel discussion, one that I think has got a varied amount of inputs from all of our experts. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you